You are listening live to the Vito and Vito Show. Disrespectful to the executive branch.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
Don't sign the damn deal, and the president won't.
Therefore, I do not believe that the majority can vote a man's life or property or freedom away from him.
And we're live here on the Vito and Vito Show. I'm Vito.
And I'm Vito.
And we want to welcome you here, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vito and Vito Show. Check us out at the website, www.vitoandvito.com. You give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Vito and Vito Show. That's our social media. And again, check out the website, www.vitoandvito.com for network listings, past articles, and our newest episodes over, again, at vitoandvito.com. Vito, explain to the good people at home just what they're listening to.
Bringing you the perspectives of two college-age millennial conservative libertarians out of liberal hellhole Brooklyn, New York, where we're committed to defending the principles of freedom, free markets, liberty, and individualism. We hold no punches here on the show.
That's right, Vito. We hold no punches here on the show, and being that we're college-age millennials,
Or just overgrown buffoons.
we're going to let ourselves have just a little bit of fun here tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
That means some sex jokes.
That's right, lots and lots of sex jokes, so you're going to love what's in store tonight. Plus the Pope.
Oh, yeah, of course. If you're looking for political correctness, you've come to the wrong show, definitely. We're not going to quote the Bible, but we are going to quote some Playboy and some Atlas Shrugged.
Atlas Shrugged. Don't forget the Fountainhead. And all other Ayn
Which
Rand's
is your
great
Playboy.
works. It's my Playboy, exactly.
Excellent.
I have a thing for Ayn Rand.
It's
If you keep listening, you'll see why. Vito, what is the website again that these good people can check out?
www.vitoandvito.com.
www.vitoandvito.com. Network listings, past articles, and our newest episodes. Because in Brooklyn...
It's nothing but the truth.
All right, Vito, let's break it down here tonight. We got a big show. Mm-hmm. Ben Carson calling out Muslims. High five and kudos to Ben. Finally, a presidential candidate getting up there and actually talking about Islam and Muslims. I got to give it to Ben Carson. We're going to get a little bit into those comments that he made. Very controversial. Some people have been saying that they want him to drop out of the race.
Yeah, we'll get more into that.
I mean, how intolerant can you be?
Well. Also, the Holy One is here.
The Holy One. That's right. I just came in a couple days ago. I just rolled out of bed.
But you see, Peter, as a Catholic, I knew immediately that the Pope was in the United States because I felt a disturbance. I knew something was happening.
Are you stealing jokes from late night talk show hosts? Is that what we're doing here?
No.
Are we taking Stephen Colbert jokes and we're throwing them on
Was
our
that
show?
him? I thought it was a dream.
I thought it was a dream. Yeah, it was the Pope himself. It was Jesus. Anyway, you're going to love it. The Pope's in town. That's right. Brooklyn, New York, where we're broadcasting live from. The Pope is here. The Pope is in town. I don't know why I said it in that accent, but the Pope is here. Now, I have to say this, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not a very religious person. Again, I love Ayn Rand, and as many people know, Ayn Rand was an atheist. So, I'm not very religious. However, my other partner here, my co-host, is a Christian conservative. He identifies as such. He calls himself a believer. He loves God. He's a Roman Catholic, so he follows the Pope. And he's all ecstatic, Vito, aren't you, for the whole for the Pope's visit?
I can't wait. That's why we're going to Washington this week, right?
I can't wait for the Pope. I'm running away. No, but in all honesty, the Pope is a very controversial figure.
Yes.
I mean, how does he look? We're going to talk more about the Pope and the influence of the Pope and his Marxist leanings, and whether you're a conservative, liberal, whether you're a Catholic, an atheist, whether you're a Jew, a Muslim, whatever you are. At the end of the day, this Pope is one thing I think all of us can agree on. He's a sick Marxist who is trying, I think, in my opinion, trying to use the power of the Pope to advance a Marxist agenda upon the entire world, or at least doing it through the Catholic faith, which has to be the most manipulative thing I've ever seen done by a, quote, religious figure. But I'm going to get into that in a second. Vito, what do you think of the Pope? What does he mean to you? To me, he doesn't mean a lot. But what does he mean to you?
Well, he is the head of the Catholic Church, but I will say this now, I'll say it later, he should not get involved in politics. When he comes to the United States, that's fine, say hi to Obama, preach a little, it's a historic event, I'm fine with that. But when you have comments about Cuba, saying climate change, he is one of the more liberal popes we've seen.
Well, there's the issue of abortion, the issue of evolution, the issue of climate change, and the issue of, income inequality and capitalism. He's very much to the left on the spectrum. Whether you consider that a good thing or not, it's certainly a position that we haven't seen popes in the past take that isn't necessarily a conservative track. I know a lot of cardinals and priests and a bunch of these other religious figures are walking around saying basically how the Pope is radically different, keyword radically different than other popes in the past. And whether you, again, agree with the Pope's messaging or not, or at least the figure of the Pope, his messaging, his political stances is very different than what we've seen in the past. And frankly, I think he is one of the more radical, revolutionary popes to ever touch on the earth, and I think it's something that we need to talk about if we're talking about politics, because he's coming into our realm. No longer is he chatting with God, he's chatting with Vito and Vito. I think that's a very interesting perspective. But the Pope, very, like I said, Vito, very historical event. I'll give you that.
Yes, and that's just the preview, because we'll get into that in a little bit.
That's right.
And also, I was right.
What'd you do?
Scotty's out.
That's right, Scott Walker dropping out of the race earlier this week. With Dr. Evil with the little Scotty, for those Austin Power fans out there, Vito making little faces here with his pinky ring. But yeah, Scott Walker dropping out of the race. Wow.
Shocker.
Shocker indeed, because this guy was supposed to be Jeb Bush's big problem.
The next nominee.
He was supposed to be at least in the top 3. I don't know about the next nominee, but he was supposed to unite conservatives, Tea Party, and the establishment.
Well, everything he did in Wisconsin, fighting against the unions, won multiple elections, this
Right.
new firebrand, revolutionary, leading the polls, all this momentum, and then just fell off a cliff.
It sort of fell off a cliff indeed, and I think there are
black
3
hole.
factors. There are 3 factors to why he fell.
Well, let's not spoil it.
I'm not going to spoil it. I'll give you one. It starts with T, ends with ump.
You know?
I'm telling you right now, the Trump factor certainly has a big influence in the campaign, but it's not the only campaign. I'm not saying Donald Trump's a bad candidate or anything like that. I'm just saying Trump is sucking the air out of the room for a lot of people.
There are
Whether
many
that's a good thing or a bad thing, right, I'll leave it up to you. But the issue here is that just look at how powerful the man is. I'm not saying he's good, I'm not saying he's bad. I'm saying he's powerful. And those on the left have said it, those on the right have said it, those in the middle have said it. The man is incredibly, incredibly powerful that he's able to basically knock down Scott Walker. But hey, guess what? Scott Walker didn't get knocked down because of Donald Trump solely. He got knocked down because of his own positions, which we're going to get into the contradictions of Scott Walker's position that he held. We're going to get into the flip-flopping of Scott Walker, and we're going to say how ultimately this election is not about establishment, same old Washington BS politics. This is an election that conservatives and even liberals on the left are willing to come out in droves. The bases are angry, they're pissed, they're infuriated, and they're looking for new candidates who stand on principle or at least perceive to do so. Listen, Vito, I want to get into our first issue of the night, and that is
the Dr. Ben Carson.
What exactly did he say, Vito? Break it down for me.
According to CNN.com, Dr. Ben Carson said, "I would not advocate that we put a Muslim in charge of this nation. I absolutely would not agree with that." Well, Vito, do you agree with Dr. Ben?
Oh, 100%. First of all, I'm going to say something right now that is incredibly controversial, but this show is not known for political correctness. Or if it's known at all. But the issue that I'm going to make right now is that Islam, and I know the listeners out there listening agree. I know my listeners agree with me when I say Islam is an evil, dangerous, disgusting religion in terms of ideology. I'm not the only one who said it. Sam Harris, neurobiologist. Richard Dawkins, author of The God Delusion. The late Christopher Hitchens. These men are atheists on the left. Hitchens himself is a socialist. Yeah, a socialist. Bill Maher. That new guy that replaced Jon Stewart. The guy from South Africa, whatever his name is. He's on Comedy Central. You got these figures on the left calling out Islam and basically all of the conservative base. I never thought I'd see the day when I could hold Bill Maher's hand and say, yeah, I agree with you, brother. But in this issue, we agree. And Ben Carson is 100% right, and I'll break it down in just a second.
The fundamentals of Islam are inconsistent with the Constitution.
Well, explain what that means. That's a big assertion you just made. Explain to me how Muslim principles, define what they are, and then tell me how they contradict with America's principles.
Muslim principles that are basis of Sharia law in countries like Iran, Saudi Arabia, these countries that rule on the law of Islam, such as literally stoning women to death, stripping rights away from women and gays, etc., etc.
Don't forget the penalty for leaving the religion,
of course,
which is death.
There's many.
The penalty for being gay, I think it's like 50 lashes, might be death, who knows. It's sick, it's barbaric.
These are anti-liberty, anti-America, anti-Constitution. The Constitution gives you the rights, God-given rights, of life, liberty, and property. That is not consistent, that does not agree with the rules, the principles of Islam.
Well, I agree with you 100%, and for what, again, we're talking about the ideology of Islam. I'm not talking about all Muslims, because, you know, that average Muslim on the street that maybe walks down your Brooklyn block with his jukebox, eating a cheeseburger with bacon, I'm telling you right now, he's not probably a big crazy Muslim seeking to blow up the world. But if you ask a religious Muslim, and I gotta give credit to what credit is due here. You know who made this great point, this point that I'm making right now? Russ Gallo over at Behind Enemy Lines. I'm gonna give him credit because I don't want to get sued. And B, because it was a great point that he brought up. Great point that he brought up. If you take a look at your average Muslim, or your average guy who hangs out on the weekends and calls himself, you know, a Muslim, chances are he's probably not a crazy, hysterical, sick Islamic fundamentalist. But if you ask a religious, and again, religious, they go to the mosque, they're dedicated, they celebrate the holidays with force, and they really love what they do.
A quote-unquote real fundamental Muslim.
Just a real Muslim, even if he's not self-identified as a fundamentalist.
Well, it's a real Muslim.
But before you get to that, before you ask whether he's a fundamentalist or not, they sort of reveal it when you start asking them, well, what is the penalty in the Quran for leaving the religion? What is the penalty for adultery? And before you know it, they start unraveling themselves, and they start making justifications for the atrocities that were committed in the name of Islam, in the name of Allah. So, before we go any further, I just want to make this point clear and concise. I'm not anti-Muslim. I'm anti-Islam. And I think everybody listening to this show is anti-Islam. I think everybody listening, watching Bill Maher and the rest of those guys out there who believe that the issue isn't over personality, but rather the issue is over ideology. That's an incredible conversation that we need to have that we're not having. And Ben Carson is doing a great job because he's not saying that he hates Muslims. He's saying he has a problem with this ideology.
He said we're not advocate for them to be a president.
Because of the principle argument you just laid out a little while ago, which I agree with 100%.
And you see his wording, other Republican GOP candidates even came out and said, you know, stupidly, well, there's no religious requirement in the Constitution to be president. Ben Carson's not saying there is. He's saying I would not advocate for Muslims to be president. Not saying that they're not allowed to be. Right. That it's unconstitutional. Just that he would rather them not to be. And even Rand Paul came out and said something like this. He was on TV. He was saying how he would not necessarily advocate for Muslims. He's alright with a Muslim being president, but he would have serious questions and concerns first. Because listen, if an average guy on the street, an average Muslim becomes president, well, if they're not religious, that's one thing. Right? You go through questions and see if they're not fundamentalists. Because if some guy's not religious, but his religion technically is a Muslim, would that be so bad if he's a president? That's arguable. But if you have somebody who is a quote-unquote real Muslim, they're easily, one, not going to follow the Constitution, and they're obviously going to sympathize with the Sharia law nations in the Middle East.
And I mean, if you take a look at this whole issue, what is a real Muslim? I just want to, again, clear this up. The issue is over what your holy book says. The holy book of the Quran, look, come on. It doesn't take an Islamic scholar to come up here, an imam, an Islamic priest, whatever you want to call him. It doesn't take some scholar to come in, look at the Quran, and say, well, this obviously means something that it doesn't mean. Jihad is specifically written into the Quran. Muhammad's life is a separate book in the religion of Islam, but it is a book that its followers are supposed to mimic. And if you look at the history of Muhammad's life, it's certainly something to raise cause and alarm.
That's exactly what I want to jump on, because I want to clear this, that the Islamic God is not evil.
Well,
because, follow me.
Well,
okay,
I went to school. Because I would disagree with this point, but go ahead.
Ready? Jews, Christians, and Muslims all have the same God.
I would... Okay.
Wait.
Okay, go ahead.
The problem is that the Muslims, a man named Muhammad, came and interpreted, apparently, the word of God, but completely screwed up the interpretation. Muhammad put his own thing to it.
Well, I don't know if I would concede that point, because if you claim that the Christian God and the Jewish God are the same God with Islam, you're making the point that it is the Christian God and the Jewish God and the Muslim God, if they're all the same, that means they all agree in jihad. Do you see what I'm saying? So I don't know if I would 100% jump on that bandwagon. Even though I get it as an Abrahamic religion, yes, Abraham is sanctioned in this, but frankly, this is why I'm a very big critic of Islam, because if you take a look at the history of Islam, you see it is one of the last religions to come about, one of the last religions to form, and a lot of people have theorized that Islam is basically a cherry-picked religion of both Christianity and Judaism, with exactly what Vito said before, Muhammad's spin all over the place. Now, we could get into the debate over Islam all we want, but the main issue here remains, there's a presidential candidate out there right now, my number 3 pick for the presidency, and my number 1 pick for the vice presidency, who is running around telling Americans that he would not put in a Muslim president because of the issues I think that we just elaborated on. Wow. Thank God, finally, somebody is waking up to the terrors and the evilness of Islam, and we're finally calling out the spade a spade. We're finally calling out where evil is, and I think, again, it's not anti-Muslim, oh, you're an Islamophobe, get out of here with that crap, I don't really care what you think of me. Criticize my point. I'm arguing over the basis and the ideology that is Islam. The ideology that is Islam. The ethical system of Islam. The moral system of Islam. That's what I'm arguing, and frankly, I think it is a powerful, powerful, powerful argument, and I think Ben Carson is just glazing the surface, but certainly tapping into an argument that we don't want to tap into because we're afraid to offend people.
No, don't. Because Ben Carson raised over $1 million in the 24 hours he released these comments.
Excellent.
So this backlash has raised some money. Yeah. He's doing well in the polls.
Mm-hmm. He's doing very well in the polls, yeah.
And it's smart for Rand Paul to come out and follow along.
Sure.
A little bit, not fully saying we advocate, but putting a more constitutional...
And again, you have
moderate
and again, you have I'm talking. There's 2 issues here. One, we're not talking about what the government should do with Islam. I mean, you have there's 2 roads here. One, you have a right. You as an individual have a right to believe whatever you want. But your beliefs stop once you hurt another person, once you infringe on their life, liberty, and property. Again, I think that's a central point to America's philosophy. So before we go any further, I think that point has to be established. And once we establish that point, Ben's not saying I don't want Muslims to exist, or I don't want you to be a Muslim. He's not scaring anybody. He's just saying, well, wait a second, I wouldn't have this person in charge of the government. I wouldn't have a Muslim, at least a devout one, who follows Sharia law, or has traces of that at least.
Well, would you personally, would you advocate for a Muslim who's running for president?
No, absolutely not.
No moderate Muslim?
Well, what's a moderate Muslim? There's no thing as a moderate Muslim.
Why not?
What's a moderate Muslim? Define one.
A non-practicing or
then they're not really, again, they're not really a Muslim.
Yeah, but they say they're Muslim.
Because if you're going to follow the central tenets of your religion...
Well, like most Catholics.
Well, I would argue a lot of those Catholics aren't even big Catholics.
Well, if they're still Catholics.
There's a term called cafeteria Catholics, which is once the Protestants came over here... Not the Protestants, excuse me, but once immigrants came over from England to the United States in the turn of the century, and before that, you had a lot of people who were disenfranchised with the Pope. They were disenfranchised with a lot of with British rule and the monarchy. So they come over here seeking to have freedom. They seek to flourish in a society with weak authority. They seek to be free. They seek liberty. They seek freedom of religion. And at that point, because they have resentment towards the atrocities, if you will, of the English monarchy and the Roman Catholic Church back in the day, a lot of these people were reserved about going forward with the Roman Catholic religion, so they cherry-picked certain aspects of the religion that they liked, and they called them cafeteria Catholics. And it's a theory that's been around for a very long time, and a lot of people, I think at the end of the day, I think they are religious, but in terms of, a moderate Catholic, I don't really see what that means. I don't know. I mean,
cafeteria Muslim.
But then again, that Muslim's not really a scary super threat. But the difference is, I could deal with a moderate Catholic. I'll take that point back. Because I could deal with the moderate cafeteria Catholic. Because you know what? They're going to run around and they'll cherry pick. But the central tenets in Christianity is love, caring for their neighbor, and stuff like that. But the central tenets in Islam, again, Islam means submission. So whether you're a moderate submissive believer or whether you're a crazy fanatic who's blowing yourself up on an Israeli bus, the issue still remains. Islam's ideology in and of itself claims, this is the only religion I know, at least one of the major ones, that claim that it is the last religion. This is the last one before God comes down or whatever they claim to be. It's going to happen next. I'm talking about Islam now. Islam is the only religion that claims absolutism in that sense, that it is the only religion, and you better do as I say or else. It has a set of laws within its religion that are carried out today in the Middle East where people are getting slaughtered and we're trying to defend ourselves from these animals. Because it is built within the religious structure in general. And then it corresponds over to a social structure where now you have society and community set up. I mean, just look at the documentaries on ISIS and how they treat the people. It's insane.
And you see how that religion influences society and government. That's why the fundamentals of Islam, as a Muslim, that cannot work with the Constitution. Yeah. So you cannot swear to follow the Constitution when you have these influences that such greatly influence your life, like religion. It's gonna mess around with the Constitution. It's gonna cross paths. It's not gonna work out.
And again, if you're gonna claim, then what if he's a moderate Muslim who doesn't really believe that Islam is submission? He has a different view on Islam. Well, then you know what? Then there better be more of his people out there, because if you want to call those the moderate Muslims, where the hell are they when we have people all across the Middle East, Christians getting killed and slaughtered by radical Muslims? Where is that that committed moderate Muslim population that wants to stand up and fight against the atrocities and the smearing of Islam? So they claim. I don't see it. Case in point, moderate Muslims are a minority, not a majority. Mm-hmm. If Turkey is such a moderate Muslim country, how come they never let us go in 2003 at the invasion of Iraq? Why were we not allowed? I'm getting my information from George W. Bush's Decision Points, his memoir. Why wasn't the United States and the rest of the Allies allowed to go in through Turkey, a moderate Muslim nation, to get to Iraq? Would have been more efficient, would have been easier, would have had their help, would have had their correspondence. Instead, we didn't. Turkey said no. The one reason? Now, Bush doesn't elaborate on it, but the issue is basically pretty clear. Bush didn't want to get and infuriate the radical Muslims that are basically hiding within the Turkey government and the Turkish society. Isn't that scary? They claim to be moderate Muslims, but they have Sharia courts. The United Arab Emirates, the UAE, another supposedly moderate Muslim country, they have Sharia courts. Yemen has been overrun and has Sharia courts, and now ISIS running all over the place. Iran is run, need I go any further, by the crazy clerics out there. Iraq has fallen to these animals known as ISIS. Syria is a mess. There is no such thing as a moderate Muslim. Muslim is clearly defined, objectively defined as one thing, Vito. Submission. Now, where on the scale do you fit? That's the key point that I'm trying to make. Different than Christianity and Judaism, where it is about love and it's about family and stuff like that. And I can get with that. I can coexist with that. I cannot coexist with a religion that wants me to act as a second-class citizen because I don't subscribe to their beliefs.
Well, the very moderate Muslims that I have met, the few moderates who have tried to argue anything, is saying that Islam is a religion of love.
Nonsense.
This is their
nonsense
argument. But what they're saying is, they're skipping over the Muhammad part. Because Islam is based on the prophecy of Muhammad. Okay. Because as I was saying before, that Christianity, Judaism, and Islam all share the same God. But when Muhammad came involved, twisted everything about. So these moderate, quote-unquote, moderate Muslims are cutting out Muhammad, which is the vocal point of the religion of Islam. Yeah. So it's like Christians cutting out Jesus. They just believe in God. Well, Jesus is a huge part of Christianity, for God's sakes. It's in the name.
Sure.
So you see how these are such big parts? So are you really a Muslim if you don't believe if you don't follow, at least recognize Muhammad?
That's a good point.
It's a good point. So then, you say, oh, I'm a moderate Muslim, I don't believe in Muhammad. Well, are you really a Muslim, or are you like, I don't know, what's the word for somebody who just believes in God, but not religion?
I get it. Oh, they call him a deist.
Oh, you're more like a deist.
Sure.
So you're not really a Muslim.
Well, I mean, there are people out there that, I wouldn't say a deist in that sense.
Become Jewish.
I wouldn't say it in that, I don't know, let's be careful here. I wouldn't call them a deist. I misinterpreted what you were saying.
You're much more leaning towards that way.
No. Because a deist, again, let's just define what a deist is. A deist is someone that believes that there's one central point in the world. He started, there's a prime mover. Boom, we got the earth floating around. Someone had to make it. There's your prime mover. He started it.
Well, these moderns are missing Muhammad, which is a vocal point of religion.
Well, I wouldn't doubt that. I would agree with you. You got a lot of people out there who were so pent up on, I think, the radical interpretation of Islam, which I would argue is the only correct interpretation of this religion. And as a result, you got to ask yourself this question. You want to live and coexist with these animals who want to blow us up and kill us? Or do you want to go ahead and actually challenge these beliefs? You want to believe in Muhammad and you want to be loving and peaceful and all that? Good. Go organize a coalition with moderate Muslims. Get around the world. Get around the country. Get around your society and your community. Get out there and start organizing and start asking for peace and start asking for solidarity. You're not getting that from the Muslim community, which is why Ben Carson is doing a smart move right now. He's calling out an issue that nobody wants to talk about because of political correctness. And I'm happy, and I stand with Ben. I'm happy the man is standing up for this idea. I'm happy he's standing up with this position, and he's not backing down. He said earlier this week that he is not backing away from the comments. And you know what? Good for him. He shouldn't apologize. Stick it in your face, and he should be proud of what he believes in. Listen, Vito and I are excited, to announce the 6th annual Liberty Fest NYC. Guess where it's going to be taking place? At the Warsaw Concert Hall in Brooklyn, New York, our own backyard, on October 10th. That's a Saturday, and October 11th, that's a Sunday. Vito and I have a speaking spot on October 11th, so we'll be speaking at Liberty Fest NYC on Sunday, October 11th at the Warsaw Concert Hall in Brooklyn, New York. Now, you're asking yourself, what exactly is Liberty Fest? And I'm going to sit there, and Vito, I'm going to tell you. Liberty Fest NYC is a yearly event that brings together speakers from across the political spectrum. From Republicans to Democrats to Libertarians and even anarchists. That's right, anarchists. Vito and I are proud to be part of an event that does not silence folks simply because of a differing point of view. Liberty Fest NYC welcomes dynamite speakers like former New Mexico governor and presidential candidate Gary Johnson, Jimmy McMillan of the Rent is Too Damn High Party, 2015 ACU Blogger of the Year, and CEO of We Are America Radio, Wayne Dupree, host of Adam vs. the Man, Adam Kokesh, distinguished fellow of the Foundation for Economic Education, Jeffrey Tucker, and a lot more. Check out www.lfnyc.com. I'll give it to you again. www.lfnyc.com for more information on how you can purchase tickets and be part of this amazing conference where we can help strengthen liberty together. Again, Liberty Fest, NYC, October 10th and 11th at the Warsaw Concert Hall in Brooklyn, New York. Vito and I will be speaking on October 11th, so head on over to www.lfnyc.com. Again, www.lfnyc.com to purchase your tickets today. We're taking a break. When we return here to the Vito and Vito show, we're going to talk about Scott Walker, and we're going to talk about, what else are we talking about?
The Pope.
The Pope! Oh, it's a very religious show here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Someone's getting saved. Vito's going to hell. When we return, which one? You'll find out right here to the Vito and Vito.
Who might you save?
Your mother, your father, your husband, uncle, aunt, son.
Learn FAST, F-A-S-T, the sudden signs of a stroke, and you could save.
Your friend, teacher, boss.
F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. F-A-S-T. That's F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. The sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in the recovery of
Your neighbor, the waiter, grandmother, grandfather.
So learn FAST, the sudden signs of a stroke, then pass it on, because you never know who might save you.
Your wife, your colleague.
Spot a
children.
stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
Fighting the Common Core standards? Need a powerful tool to help inform others on this harmful education initiative? You're covered with Common Ground on Common Core, the collection of essays by 20 top education experts and activists. Reviewers call it the best single resource on the topic. You can share it with literally anyone. Order your print or digital copy of Common Ground on Common Core today. Just visit resoundingbooks.org. That's resoundingbooks.org. And get $2 off when you tell them Vito and Vito sent you. Paid for by Resounding Books Pack.
Are you among the 64% of Americans who believe our country is going in the wrong direction? If yes, then eVoiceAmerica.com is the political take-action site we've all been waiting for. And it's really free. eVoice America provides your personal list of elected reps every time you log on. This makes it so easy to email your opinions and e-votes on top issues directly to each of our D.C. elected representatives. eVoice then publishes our e-vote majority percentages on top issues to each member of Congress and the media. Now, for the first time in history, we can know what millions of American citizens are telling Congress. No more gridlock. Join the new American majority using eVoiceAmerica.com, putting Americans in control of Congress. Visit eVoiceAmerica.com today. It's free and easy to use. That's eVoiceAmerica.com.
And we're back here on the Vito and Vito Show. I'm here with my co-host, the other Vito. Go ahead and check out the website, www.vitoandvito.com. Because right now we're going to be talking about the Holy Man. He's here. He came to America to stop by with President Obama.
That's right.
The Pope.
The Pope.
Francis.
The Pope. The Pope. The Marxist Pope is in town, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. He's in town, and he's got a Twitter. Mm-hmm. And he uses it, and you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Vito and Vito Show for more information on just how much we don't like Islam and how much we're going to now criticize the Pope. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to get in a lot of trouble.
Let's start off with this.
Okay.
White House spokesman Josh Earnest compared President Obama to the Pope, saying, quote, both men have talked quite publicly about their commitment to social justice. Can you believe this? Comparing President Obama to the holiest man in the world.
This is unbelievable.
The leader of the Catholic Church.
This is crazy talk. Crazy talk. You got somebody sitting here, President Obama, and the Pope, because they're both defenders of first of all, social justice is nonsense. I don't care what you say.
Yes.
Social justice, in and of itself, is basically cultural Marxism, which basically means everyone's equal. No, there are no differences. It's an egalitarian nightmare, but we're all pushing for it. And this is something the left talks about. This is something Marxists talk about. This is something that people on the left talk about. So I don't necessarily see why this is a wonderful thing in terms of social justice. And at the same time, I don't see why the president would want to align a crazy leftist platform with the Pope. But then I get down to it and I realize that both of these guys really are pretty much in the same boat when it comes down to their political leanings.
Or even see why the Pope would want to be affiliated with somebody that far left. Especially socially.
You know, good point. I would concede on that, because what you have here is a crazy man, President Obama, walking around talking about how social justice is a virtue, and all these leftist professors talk about this stuff in class, sociology and thisology and thatology, and 1,000 Odysseys Under the Sea, whatever the hell the book was called. And what you have here is everybody just talking about this stuff. And everybody talking about how wonderful it is that we all come together, and we're all equal, and we should share everything, and we shouldn't discriminate, and we shouldn't call out people for being mean. We shouldn't call out people and be mean to them. We should sort of tolerate these views. This is the point that the president and the Pope apparently share, And it was the press secretary of the White House who said this, right?
Josh
Earnest.
Earnest,
Yeah.
But that's not the only thing that President Obama and the Pope share in common, because the Pope decides to get political while in Washington, D.C., right?
Shocking.
While in Rome. So, as we know, the Pope has had a few controversial comments about certain political issues.
Yes.
Such as refugees, climate change. You know, when he agreed with Obama that climate change is the biggest threat in the world. Not ISIS, that's killing Christians, which the Pope is kind of the head of the Catholic Church. I think that should be a top issue for him. But to go on with saying the United States should take in thousands upon thousands of refugees.
Yeah, because John Kerry and President Obama are seeking to do an executive order here where they could accept about 10,000 to 25,000 Syrian refugees. Again, you have to go through the Congress for this. This is a very specific issue. The Congress deals with immigration matters and stuff of this nature. But we don't see the Congress being invoked. We don't see the Senate being talked about. We just see the President and his almighty pen and his almighty phone. So I consider this to be a slap in the face of the American people and the Constitution. But more importantly, what I see here is a bigger picture in terms of the Pope. Forget President Obama. We know he's a radical leftist. I want to talk about another radical leftist. Certainly someone who has such an amazing amount of power in that the Pope himself, Pope Francis, who is supposedly a man of the people and a man of the working man. Right away, bells went off in my head, and I said, this guy, man of the common man, the working man. I said, wait a second. Something's not right about this guy. You keep going into it, and the Pope, when you break it down, hates capitalism, doesn't like income inequality because he feels that everyone should be equal, thinks the poor are subjected to harsh conditions because of capitalism, considers climate change to be one of the top issues, if not the top issue affecting mankind, as opposed to radical Islam. And then you have, this sort of moral sophistication that fits on his side. The guy is saying to himself, or at least he's giving off the perception, that he is this new pope, this radical new pope who's going to change the face of the Catholic Church. And a lot of Christians that I know, Roman Catholics in particular, are fed up with him. But there are Protestants out there, there are Mormons, there are tons of different Christians from different denominations who aren't very happy to see this. They don't like seeing a pope come out, a quintessential leader in the Christian movement, come out and spew what he's spewing, because really it does not reflect what all Christians should believe in. I don't think all Christians should believe in socialism.
I was just going to say that Christian values is not socialism.
Right.
There was this meme by Occupy Democrats, which we put on the website over at VitoandVito.com. You've spoke about this before. You wrote this article up. That the Democrats compared Bernie Sanders to Jesus. But the thing was,
they called him a carpenter, I think a fighter for social justice.
They're both Jewish.
Yeah, they're both Jewish. Like, it was such, petty, superficial nonsense.
Right.
But go ahead.
Jesus was not a socialist. Christianity does not preach socialism. Period. Okay? Jesus says to give, to care, to love.
Again, by voluntarily.
Right. Not forcing the government to control everybody's lives, to force everybody to be quote-unquote equal. To share the same wages and pay. That is socialism. That is not the preachings of Jesus.
You know what religion does force you to do things like this? Talking about it in the last segment. Islam. That's the religion that's forcing this. That's where your issue is. I find it to be incredibly ironic that the Christian Church, or the Roman Catholic Church, excuse me, is becoming and sort of molding itself in the realm of Islam. What does that mean? Well, Pope Francis is sort of saying how we need governments to force other people to give to the poor. We need to force about some type of socialized programs, and we need to reform and critique capitalism. He has no idea what the free market is. He has no idea what freedom and liberty means, but the guy is seeking to use government force in order to do it. Interesting. To me, the only religion that sits about and preaches force is Islam.
It's sick.
It is a little sick. A little baffling. Again, this guy is the most radical Marxist new era pope that we've ever seen. And he's got some good traits to him. He's like, hey, look, don't be mean to other people. Of course, but that's a general principle rule in Christianity. I'm talking about, or in life, really. I'm talking about the Pope's political stances should alarm you. They should really alarm you. If you're sitting there and you think that this is a great idea, we got a problem. Because that means the Pope is basically sanctioning talks with Cuba, which undermine individual rights and freedom and liberty, undermine what it means to be free, undermine what it means to be a person of God. Because now what they're talking about is using force and using the government to coerce you into doing these things. And frankly, that's a moral actor that I'm not going to get on board with. And I'm very reluctant and very surprised to see the Pope and to see what he's doing here.
The Pope has to stay religious and not get involved politically.
Yeah, I mean, I think his goal should be spirituality, not pushing about political agendas, and that's what he's doing. And I'm telling you now, it's a scary. And
you see, you can't go around. You can't see the United States should just pick up these refugees and urge Obama to do other kind of
this is nonsense.
Because we follow the Constitution. There's certain ways that laws go. You know, the separation of church and state.
Not even that.
At the very simplest point.
Not even that. Throw it out the window. Although you make a good point. But throw it out the window.
Great. My good point out the window.
Out the window. I'll tell you why. Because guess what? I want to know just how many of those 20,000, 10,000, whatever the number is now the president is dreaming up, of Syrian refugees that have affiliations and ties to ISIS and terrorist groups. That's what I want to know. We have every right as a country to protect ourselves, every right of a country to turn around and stop terror at the door. And by allowing these refugees to come into this country would be sick. I don't care what the Pope is saying because we don't know where these people are coming from.
But we can stop this from happening by Congress holding the president accountable and forcing this process to go through Congress, which is by following the Constitution, not what the Pope is saying.
It's unbelievable. Listen, the Pope stuff is going to be fun. We'll have more. We'll have Pope Week, like Shark Week, and we'll figure something out. It's going to be a lot of fun. And as a result of the Pope's visit here in New York City, traffic has been absolutely awful. Vito can't get around, going from class to class, or just hanging out on the street corners trying to sell his body. Vito hasn't working out for you.
It's not going well.
It's not going well at all.
Not at all. No, these nuns everywhere, not budging. I should probably pick a different corner.
It's that time of the week again. Forget about it. Moments of...
Forget about it?
Forget about it.
Forget about it.
Paul, forget about it.
Yes, forget about it. Moments of the week. This is the time in our show, in our program, when we break down some of the craziest moments in politics and around the world, and we just show you just how embarrassing, awful, dejected, lonely, embarrassing again, the human race is. It's great. In Brooklyn, we have a term when you see these things where you just can't believe it. You say the word, forget about it. Vito, what's our first forget about it moment of the week?
According to CNBC.com, the Office of Personal Management announced Wednesday that about 5.6 million people are now estimated to have their fingerprint information stolen. It gets better.
Oh, great.
21.5 million people have also had their social security numbers and other sensitive information affected by a hack associated with the Chinese government.
Really?
Chinese hackers.
Wow.
China.
Wow. So the Chinese hackers have stolen people's personal thumb information?
Fingerprints.
That's crazy.
Social security information, other sensitive information.
That's unbelievable. You know, this is another act, again, of cyber warfare. I don't know if it's dictated by the Chinese government, but it wouldn't be the first time the Chinese government did an attack like this on our country.
From the Chinese in general.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Second forget about it moment of the week.
On Twitter, hashtag shout your abortion was tweeting.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah, I say, regardless of being pro-choice or pro-life, don't shout out your abortion.
Is that necessary?
Really?
Really?
How is this empowering?
This is not empowering. I don't see what that is. I got an abortion.
Look,
Good for
I
you.
killed a child.
You know what this is? These are issues of self-esteem. That's what I'm calling it out to be. These people
with these feminists.
Yeah.
Because you know what's also trending this week was hashtag masculinity is fragile.
Masculinity is fragile?
Yes.
That was trending on
Something
Twitter?
like, yeah.
You know what it is?
It's a feminist attacks of men.
Yeah, and feminists, of course, are self-conscious and they have low self-esteem because they can't stand up for themselves. Look, feminism is about being a strong woman and doing what you want to do for yourself independent of anybody else. But I don't see how that somehow in some way relates to screaming about your abortion and screaming about your accomplishments. To me, you're an ass when you do stuff like that because all you're doing is just gloating and bloating up about yourself. I mean, don't you hate it, Vito, when people do nothing but talk about themselves?
Oh,
awful. awful. I can't stand it.
I
Vito,
can't
what do you think of my new pink earring? You like it?
Unbelievable. I can't stand feminists. Hashtag feminism is awful. Should be trending constantly.
I agree.
Okay? I'm not a feminist, but I still believe women have equal rights because guess what? They do.
Individuals have rights. There's no such thing as women's rights, men's
women,
rights,
men,
gay
you,
rights.
me, he, she, we all do.
We all do because we all have a right to life,
Very
liberty,
simple.
and property. Let's forget about it. Moment of the week.
According to theweek.com, back in May there was a murder at Yale, a suicide murder.
Oh my God.
And now they found out exactly what happened.
What happened, Vito?
A conservative activist, him and his best friend, they decided to have a threesome with the girl. And one guy got jealous and upset at the other friend and decided to stab him in the neck during intercourse and then jump out the 9th floor window, killing himself.
Wait. Why did he stab him?
Now, you see, there's two guys and one girl.
Uh-huh.
Now, you have to take turns, Vito. Okay? He wasn't cooperating. I don't know, one of them, they didn't set rules.
Uh-huh.
So he pissed off the friend, and then he decided just to stab him in the neck.
Oh my God. That's unbelievable.
Mid-act.
That is
Stabs
crazy.
in the neck, and then jumped.
So these are conservative...
He was a conservative activist
there's
at
two
Yale.
conservative guys.
I don't know about two.
We're having a threesome with some girl.
He, I guess, was not letting the other one in.
Now, here's the kicker.
And
Do you know two conservative guys on the radio?
I do.
Do you know... No, for the record, Vito and Vito haven't had a threesome together.
Yes.
And we just finished up our conversation about the Pope. So we just...
Well, I'll say this on there, Vito. I will not stab you in the neck.
Oh, Vito,
if this happens
you're out of
to
your
us.
mind. I'm not jumping into
I
bed
wouldn't
with
stab you.
I wouldn't jump into bed with you.
Not just me.
Thank you for not stabbing me and following the non-aggression principle.
Because we're going to have rules set up.
What do you mean?
I'm not going to get to details now.
What are you talking about?
If we have a threesome.
Oh, the Vito and Vito sandwich. Well,
Uh-huh.
first of all, if any woman is in the middle of that, God bless them. Okay? God bless them. They're not going to be able to handle it. And that's number one. Number two, I think we're getting in a lot of trouble on network stations right now because we're talking about this.
Really? Can you talk about threesomes?
I don't know.
Well, I didn't use any of the curse words that George Carlin banned.
Yeah, well,
So,
I don't...
Threesomes banned?
I don't know.
Really?
No, I don't think so. I don't think
Consenting sexual intercourse with my
Either way,
co-host and another woman?
I'm not engaging in a three-course with you, Vito.
Oh, bull.
A threesome, excuse me. No way.
You'll come around.
No.
If a woman comes up to us and says to have sex with both of us, you're going to say no?
Well, Vito, I would certainly try to persuade her to spend the night with me. I mean, look at me. I'm gorgeous. The woman would obviously
Yeah, she said, well, but both of you, I can't.
Well, she would...
This is the last night I'm here.
It would be head over heels. The first
Let's
thing
go.
she would do, we'd jump in the back seat and off we go.
I'm coming with you.
No, you're not coming, Vito. I'm locking the door. I'll stab you. All right, how about that? I'll stab
The
you.
truth comes out.
Unbelievable. There you go.
That was just forget about it.
There you go. Forget about it. Of the week. Let's turn this to a non-sexual joke and talk about Twitter fan of the week. All right, Vito. Who's that Twitter fan of the week?
Thinker.
Okay.
At Politologic.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he has a website.
It's a guy?
I don't know.
Is it a self-identified guy?
Don't know.
Is it re-identified?
I don't know.
Anyway, Thinker is a...
yeah, it has a website.
Okay.
And he or she, whoever it is, timely throws their website at us while in the middle of these political debates with people on Twitter, which actually really comes out useful.
Cool. Are they conservative or libertarian-minded?
Yeah, they seem on the right side.
Cool. All right.
So
Well,
it's
congrats.
a pretty cool account, cool website.
Cool. What's the
We'll
website?
Shut them out. Politologic.com or .org. It's linked in their bio, so
Believable.
we'll shut them out.
That's right. Give him a follow again at...
Politologic.
All right, cool. Congrats, Thinker, your Twitter fan of the week.
We'll tweet it out. Simple. Just click on it.
All right, we get it. All right, guy. Listen, Scott Walker dropped out of the race. You're not going to believe this, Vito.
Really?
He's gone. Finished. What do you think?
Wow.
I know, wow. That's what I said. And frankly, to me, this goes to show you just how proud I am of conservatives. Scott Walker, I'm sorry, is no conservative. I'll tell you why. Conservatives believe in the truth. They believe in accountability. They believe in following through on their campaign promises. And this guy is not following through on this campaign promises.
So you're saying Scott Walker lied?
Maybe.
Oh.
Maybe. But I think you know a little bit more than I do about where he lied and what went wrong. So explain to me the Scott Walker dilemma.
Oh, I was hoping you'd take over.
You take over.
Okay. Put up the teleprompter. Scott Walker, if you remember. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about this on the show also.
Right.
Because Scott Walker brought this up again in the second debate, saying that he defunded Planned Parenthood.
Right.
But did he? No. He stopped the funds, one set of funds, I believe Title V, coming in from the federal government. But while right now they're still getting more funds from the government, and there's a bill in the Assembly of Wisconsin is happening right now. They're trying to get it passed to defund Planned Parenthood. So how is it defunded if the Assembly is trying to defund it right now?
I find that to be another that's an undermined attack. Scott Walker has flip-flopped his position on immigration a couple of times, so I think that needs to be something that needs to be addressed. At GOP bigwig dinners, he's telling people, according to a Breitbart article, that he is looking for a pathway to citizenship, and then he's on the campaign trail talking about deportation, and he's talking the Trump factor, and he's talking about how he wants to be a brand new type of immigration activist where he wants to talk about the rule of law.
And you saw his poll numbers drop from 10%. He was up there, now down to 2. Now it's under 1.
Another
he
issue.
He just dropped.
Yeah, and that a lot more because of that. I think also the birthright citizenship issue also came up as well.
These things.
Yeah, he kept flip-flopping on the 14th Amendment. So here's a guy that's supposed to be the challenger to Jeb Bush, the guy who's supposedly supposed to be the unifier, the guy who was going to be the conservative and establishment unifying force in Scott Walker, leaving the race. And to me, I think conservatives are dissatisfied with him. They're not happy with these politicians lying to them. It's again, the Trump factor plays a big role here. Speaking of Trump, I just want to bring this up, and I said this earlier in the program, he does suck the air out of the room. People go to see Trump. You want to see Trump. I want to see Trump. I want to see who Trump trumps. People want to see Donald Trump talk. They want to see what he says because he's appealing to the conservative base. Trump is taking a lot of energy away from other candidates. Nothing wrong with that. He's running a good campaign. That's what he's doing, and I got to give it to him there. But what you see is the Trump factor taking effect. You see Scott Walker's flip-flopping definitely coming out, and you see people dissatisfied with the current political climate. As a result, this is going to be the year where you're going to see anti-politician message and anti-Washington message resonate. And it's going to win the general election. And I'm telling you, that's because I think Sanders is going to get the nomination, or I think some other outsider force in the Democratic Party.
Bold prediction.
Bold prediction on my end. And I think on the Republican side, you're going to get a very Washington outsider to win the nomination. I don't think Jeb will win, because I think conservatives are pissed. I don't think you'll have John Kasich winning. I don't think you'll have a Chris Christie winning. I don't even think Carly Fiorina is going to do so well once you begin to see her poll numbers. But the reason, her past positions. But when you really start to get down to it, the top 3 leaders in the GOP in Iowa are people who never held political office. Trump, Carson, and Fiorina. Not in that order. So I just had, or it could be in that order. I'm not so sure. But they're definitely the top 3 because the polls are going all over the place.
But once you see Scott Walker drop back, I think he more did this to himself than anything with Trump or any other campaigns, because once Carson dropped out, you did not see Jeb go back high in the numbers. You don't see more of a right. You see the outsiders, like you're saying. You saw Ben Carson shoot up there, and I know after this second debate, Carly Fiorina's back up there. That we kind of saw that.
It's the outside Washington gravitate the outside Washington poll. Excuse me. People want to see change, and they're willing to do it with people who aren't politicians. Vito, this was a pretty good show, I thought. What did you think?
All good things must come to an end.
That's right. All good things must come to an end, and now the end is near. We're signing off here on the Vito and Vito Show. Little Sinatra for your ears. That's right. The Vito and Vito Show, www.vitoandvito.com. Again, www.vitoandvito.com. Check out the website for past articles on newest episodes. And what else do we got on there? We got some naked pictures, right?
Yeah, check the updates, because we're going to Washington, D.C.
That's right.
This weekend for the Values Voter Summit, where, hopefully, Vito and I can have a thriesome.
No, Vito.
That's
unbelievable.
No?
No.
That's on the list.
No.
I put it in the schedule. We have Governor Huckabee's interview. We have the Benham Brothers threesome. It's right here.
Okay, great. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to try to gather up as much interviews as possible. It's going to be a blast. The Values Voters Summit. Hopefully no threesome will be involved.
I'm hoping.
We're going down with the War Crew, right, from We Are America Radio.
You're going to meet up with our friends, Wayne Dupree.
Wayne Dupree is going to be down there. Andrew Chevalier, host of The Intersection, along with a bunch of other war hosts. It's going to be real cool. As well as Gene Beradelli from Behind Enemy Lines, and our friend and contributor Mona Salama, Politichick. It's going to be a lot of fun to go on down and hang out with this crew. The Vito and Vito Show signing off. Again, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Vito and Vito Show, and check out the website, www.vitoandvito.com.
That's right.
From the anal ward of the Empire State Building,
Because we can't afford the first floor.
Vito and Vito Show in Brooklyn.
It's nothing but the truth.